And that's the key. See, the way out of being a slave to the rich is entrepreneurship.
Yes.
And so my rich dad was a man with no education. And the funny story is he was a construction guy. I mean, he owned a construction company, he owned hotels, but he actually built his own properties. So that makes sense. As an accountant, you understand what he was doing. Mm-hmm. He was acquiring the land, financing the thing. He built hotels, stores, and all this. But when at 10 years old, he was driving a dump truck. And so my best friend, Mike, was all embarrassed because my white guy friends and women girls, they drove on the Ford panel wagons, really nice stuff, 50, 55, 56, stuff like this. Mm-hmm. And Mike would ask his father not to drop him off near school because he drove a dump truck. So, Robert, I learned early in life the way out was via entrepreneurship. That's the story.
That's amazing. Yeah. So you were growing up right along that dividing line, then that was actually physically manifest in the rich and the poor on either side of the street, but also this difference in mentality. And I thought this really captured it for me in your book. And I guess we should say the rich dad and poor dad, they weren't, one guy wasn't poor and one guy wasn't rich. They actually both made very significant incomes throughout their lives. They're both very smart guys. It's more where they ended up and the mentality that they brought to the table. And the dividing line that I thought captured it well was, you said poor dad would often say, I can't afford it.
Correct.
Whereas rich dad would say, how can I afford it?
Correct.
And so in my mind, you've got poor dad making a decree effectively, which shuts down his own thinking. You're just,
correct.
You're providing an answer where you should be providing a question
correct.
that actually forces you to think. So you could say decree shuts down thinking, inquiry invites thinking. And I think that just is very fundamental to me, because we see this world today where it's government decrees are effectively shutting down thinking. We think we can just point a regulation or a piece of legislation at a problem to fix it. And it doesn't work like that. We need more the inquiry of markets, of entrepreneurs, experimenting, trying to solve problems and advancing us. So I thought that was excellent. And then basically that people people shape their lives with their patterns of their thoughts. So is that what it all comes down to? Like it starts with the mindset, right? That we then carry out into our actions in the world, which shape our lives. Is that how you saw the difference between rich dad and poor dad unfold?
Well, it's pretty pervasive. Like my rich dad often said, the most important piece of real estate is the distance between this year and this year. If you don't get this thing working for you, it's fallow. It's not producing. And so what happens for most people when they go to school, they shut it off. They just sit there and memorize what some school teacher tells them to memorize.
Right.
Like go to school, get a job, work hard, save money, pay your taxes, and get out of debt and live debt free. And I'd sit there listening to this stuff and I'm going, but that's not what my rich dad does. Mm. And so I'd go to work for my rich dad for free because my rich dad refused to pay me. He says, the moment you accept a paycheck, your mind goes into gear. I'm going to work for money. And as a CPA, the rich don't work for money. Mm. And as a person who loves Bitcoin, you don't want the dollar anyway. But most people are addicted to that dollar or the yen or the peso.
Yeah.
And that's what schools are indoctrinating kids to do, is to work for that fake dollar. Mm-hmm. So it's really what this guy Thomas Sowell says. He's at Stanford and he's a black man. He says, education is now indoctrination. Mm-hmm.